What's up, everybody? I've been I've been dying to do that forever. It's the only reason I bought that thing is so that I could do that on this podcast. What's up, Joe?
What's going on, pal?
All right, nothing much. We are both very excited to be here doing this movie review with you guys. Hopefully, we get some people in the chat that want to talk about Transformers with us because we are, as you can tell, we are very big Transformers fans. We are going to talk about this new movie, Transformers 1, which is in theaters now. And we got a couple of talking points that we want to go through. But before we get to any of that stuff, you want to make sure that you subscribe to the Toxic Fandom podcast. You want to make sure you hit that bell. You want to make sure you tell friends about the podcast. Please, please, please tell people about the podcast. Tell them how much you like it. Tell them how funny we are and how interesting all the shows we do are and how we have no hiccups or any mistakes or anything like that. And it'll really help us out. It'll help us, it'll help the subscribers, help the algorithm, whatever the hell that means. And if you don't want to listen to us on or watch us on YouTube, make sure to do so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and SoundCloud. So, Jojo, we saw Transformers 1. Now, I just want to give like a background of my Transformers love of the franchise and love of the IP. This is, oh man, this is definitely in my top 5, if not very, very close to my number 1 thing that I love the most. Right? All of my toys that I still have from a kid are mostly Transformers toys. I still have my original Soundwave. I have my original Blaster. I have my original Jazz. Okay. I don't really have a lot of other toys from my childhood other than Transformers stuff. My other favorite things probably would be Voltron, Thundercats, and Lord of the Rings. Those would be my 4 favorite things in the whole world. But Lord of the Rings and Transformers are probably vying for number 1. So where does Transformers fit into your life as far as, you know, your love for them and other things?
It's probably in my top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I'll put Marvel as like number 1.
Okay.
I think G.I. Joe might surpass Transformers.
Right.
And then it's Transformers, He-Man, probably Voltron.
He-Man.
Yeah.
Find that guy on Instagram. Find the guy that does Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice and he sings the He-Man song. It's great. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I lost you after you said
That's
He-Man.
okay.
So what'd you say after He-Man?
I think Voltron after that.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have some really cool artwork next to me on the wall by Freddie Williams, one of our favorite artists. And he wrote some of our he wrote some of our favorite comic books.
Yeah.
Where he does crossovers with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman. He did He-Man with who else? Did he do He-Man Thundercats?
Yes, yep.
It was He-Man Thundercats. And I have artwork from him, and you can contact Freddie Williams, and he will draw you anything you want for a price, obviously, and he's very, very good. And he drew for me an Optimus Prime, a Lion-O, and a Voltron, and I have all 3 of these. I'm gonna grab the Voltron one because it's really close to me. But this is my Voltron drawn by Freddie Williams III, and Freddie Williams II. I'm sorry. And I'll tell you, the Lion-O and the Optimus Prime look just as good as that Voltron. But I'm dying to get like the evil counterparts of all 3 of those guys. So
Oh
I want to
yeah.
I want to get Megatron, Mumra, and like what are the beasts that fight Voltron? What are they called? I always forget the names of
Oh,
those
like
things.
the Robeasts.
The Robeasts. Yeah, I would love to
Yeah.
get some like random Robeast
Yep.
drawn by him. Let's see who we got here. BX Gunner 81 says Voltron, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Silverhawks.
That's a good one.
That was one cartoon I've never seen. Like I know of it. I know of Silverhawks. I've seen the intro, the opening theme for it, but I've never seen an episode of Silverhawks. I have to get on that. I have to fix that.
That is in the lore of Thundercats.
Is it? Like they're in the same world?
One of the things I saw was like the creators they were supposed to have Thundercats, which were the land-based show,
Yeah.
Silver for like the air and space based show, and then there
Okay.
was another one like that was a shark theme that never made it to mainstream, and that was going to be the water theme, and like they were all supposed
Oh,
to live in like the same overarching
universe.
universe. Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah,
interesting. That's
yeah,
really
yeah. I
interesting.
can't remember what the water one was, but that was that's like the story that I've heard, which I think is pretty cool.
Lightning sharks instead of
But
Thundercats.
that was the same for like Hasbro. You had Transformers, GI Joe,
Hmm.
and Gem, which were all like that conglomerate from Hasbro. Like those were the three big things that they pushed.
Yeah. I met Jim. I met the lady who voiced Jim. I'm
And you
pretty
met
sure
Skeletor,
I met Skeletor. I have his autograph on my wall. I met Larry Kenny, who was the voice of
Lion-O.
Lion-O. He wished me happy birthday this year on Facebook, and I didn't even have to
Oh,
ask him.
that's nice.
It says, wish Steve a happy birthday, and he's friends with me on Facebook because he's just a nice old man, and I love him. And he says happy birthday,
Fantastic.
Steve, and it's unbelievable. It makes my day every year that Larry Kenny wishes me a happy birthday. You have no idea. I wish he could leave me a voicemail in like Lion-O's voice that says happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Maverick.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. But yeah, these are my absolute favorite things. And
Happy, 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 happy birthday.
holy shit, that would be so funny. If we ever get a chance, like he comes to where I live. He does the Comic-Con in my local city. So I should come and meet him. He definitely for 20 bucks or 30 bucks will definitely leave you a voicemail.
Yeah, oh, for
100%.
sure.
They all do. They all do that. Pete Rose died.
I saw that.
Oh, it's
I
so
saw
sad.
that.
Sorry to bring it down, but that
Our
just popped
buddy
into my
Joe
head for
was
some
like,
reason.
he must have bet against the Mets.
Oh man. But yeah, so like I love the G1 Transformers. So if we
Same.
let's talk about old school Transformers for a
Hmm.
minute and like what a Transformers we love. So G1 is always going to be my thing. That's always going to be the Transformers that I flock to. That makes me happy and reminisce about my childhood. I never got into the Beast Wars because I was kind of I think I was at an age where I was like, oh, I'm too cool for cartoons. Like when I was like probably 16, 17 years
Yeah,
old, Beast Wars
yeah.
was on TV.
That was about high
Um,
school age.
yeah. And I never liked that animation style that new, like they were still trying to figure out computers at that time. And it's really like over the top geometric shaped animation. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I could never ever get into that. Like, and even like Star Wars, Clone Wars, like all those cartoons, like I can't stand that animation style. So like I won't watch them. No matter how good the show is, I won't watch them. There was a Green Lantern show that was very much like Clone Wars, and I really like Green Lantern's one of my favorite things, like as far as superheroes go. So I really pushed myself to get through that series, which I'm glad I did because it was a good series. Um, but that was hard to get through because of the animation style.
Right.
Um, BX Gunner 81 says G1 is the best and the only one I recognize 100%. I agree with you, BX Gunner. Could not agree with you more on that. Um, when the Michael Bay movies came out, I was very excited. And dude, how amped were we when those Michael Bay movies were announced and you saw, live action Transformers for the first time?
We ran to the theaters. Like it was opening night. We had to go see it.
Yeah. I mean, and we did that for a lot of stuff, but for that, I think it was extra special for us. And I remember being so upset about the designs of the robots or the designs of the Autobots and Decepticons because like you expect them to look like you've been thinking about them your entire life. You expect Optimus to be a box truck, like a big box.
Yeah.
It's not a Mack truck. I forget the actual name of the truck that he's modeled after. Um, but you didn't expect him to have flames on him and, you know, be a little different. But in the end, like you warmed up to it, right? The only thing that I did not warm up to ever were the Decepticon um models or the Decepticon like art of the Michael Bay movies. They all kind of look the same. They're all kind of just silver. There's no real definition to them. Like it's hard to tell necessarily between Starscream and Megatron sometimes because they're all just the same color. You know, at least the Autobots you had different. You had, you knew the yellow one was Bumblebee, and you knew
Right.
the neon green one was Ratchet in the movies, and Ironhide was the black truck or whatever. At least you knew the difference between them. But I always felt like with the Decepticons in the Michael Bay movies, it was always just kind of like whitewashed or just like the same color for everything, and that I never liked. I could
Right.
never get
It
into
was
that.
Starscream, Megatron were like the only two prominent characters in the first two movies.
Yeah,
Right. You had the police car, the helicopter,
a
and like
barricade.
that like construction vehicle with the
Yeah.
claw.
Hmm.
And then you got a scorpion, and you got Soundwave, which was just this creature
Yeah.
satellite in space. Like they
Right.
had no personality to it. Like you said, at least the Autobots had color. You could differentiate one from the other. Even
Yeah.
if you didn't like their style, you can differentiate who was who. The
Right.
Decepticons were just background to,
Yeah, they were just background noise. That's a
yeah.
good way to put it. And I was not like I remember enjoying the first two movies, but the more I look at it and the more I watched it, the less I enjoyed those. Especially after two, I can't even watch anything after two. I just can't do it. And
Yeah, well, the third one was like Dark of the Moon with with the Dinobots and stuff.
dude, I don't even know. Was that the one with the pyramids? Was that the one where you're looking up at the balls of Devastator? Like which one was it where you're looking up to and the balls of Devastator like are hanging out?
I think that was the second one.
That was the second that like the same thing that I hate in all of these new shows is it's always the same reason. They get the characters wrong, right? They get the
Yes.
premise of they get the heart and the soul of the show incorrect. So like with this new Rings of Power, to be honest, like if I never read the Silmarillion. I don't know the story. You could literally do whatever you want with the story timeline and I would have no clue. I only
Right.
know I'm really into the Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson movies and I like the books. So I would know the differences there. But I don't know anything prior to that story. So you could have literally told me anything and I would have went along with it. But
Mhm.
you got the characters wrong. You got the elves wrong. You got the only people that I like in that show are the dwarves. The dwarves are pretty good because there's only one of them. Like you don't have to interact with any other dwarf except Durin, his dad, and his wife, in that show. Where with the elves, you're dealing with all the elves. You're dealing with Galadriel and Elrond and Gilgadad and all the soldiers and you know and like they're just wrong. They don't have the right motivations. They don't have the right character, the right moral of them. Like they're supposed to be these fair creatures, and they're just dumb. And it just doesn't feel right. And the same thing happened to me with Michael Bay and the Transformers.
Mhm.
Once he had I forget which one it was. I want to say it was the third one. It might have been the second one that I started disliking it. Um, they start cursing. Like my Transformers don't curse. Like
Right.
there's no need for my Autobots and Decepticons to use vulgar American language. Like why? They're robots. Why would they use our vulgar language slurs?
Right.
Like you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And to me, it took me out of the movie a lot, to see them act in that way.
And even by
Um,
like the end of like the last two, like you had Optimus Prime, who is a very noble creature, character, whatever you want to call him, like doing things that were out of character. Like
mhm,
he's killing people, he's cursing, like he's doing all these things, and I'm like, that's not Prime. Like
right.
we have, like you said, you have a Similarian, you have, the trilogy books. We all have Generation One, we have Beast Wars, you have animated series, you have Prime, you have all these animated shows plus comics and novels and whatever that set up this hero,
Yeah.
and then you just crap all over him.
Right. Did you see the Beast Wars movie?
I did.
Horrible.
It was not
Absolute.
great.
It was terrible. Like they could not have gotten Optimus Prime more wrong in that movie. Like I don't think they could have tried to get him more wrong in that movie. He was such a jerk. He was an asshole in that movie. And I'm like, this just isn't Prime. Prime would not act this way in any fashion would he act this way.
It
Um,
wasn't a movie for us as fans. It was a movie to
yeah,
sell tickets, to sell
yeah,
merchandise, to build a universe, which if that's what you're going for, the two movies that came out were Snake Eyes and Transformers Beast Wars that we're going to build this
mhm,
universe for Hasbro, and
right.
like they both bombed,
Yeah. And they're
right? Like,
coming out. That's. The next movie. The next movie is a mashup between Transformers and GI Joe.
but like who's like you're going to
But we're
get
gonna
the
see
fans
it.
we're going to go see it, right? Yeah, like
Yeah.
just like this one, we
Yeah.
hemmed and hawed about this movie, and here we are podcasting about it.
The only reason I saw this was because I follow a guy on YouTube named Chris Gore and Alan Ing. They are co-hosts of a show called Film Threat, and they do a whole bunch of they review everything. They review indie films, they review the big blockbusters, they review everything in between. So every day there's a new review from them on a movie, and they did Transformers One, and he gave it a glowing review. So I was like, if he likes it and he's pretty critical of things, I was like, I have to give it a shot.
Right.
It's one of my favorite things in the world. I was dead set on not seeing it because the trailer was garbage. The trailer for this movie made it seem to me like it was a Minions movie with robots.
Yeah,
It
it,
was going to
it
be
didn't do it any justice.
No, it was going to be these hacky little corny kid jokes. I would have bet money that one of the Autobots was going to fart, and there was going to be a fart joke. Like that's just how it felt to me.
Right.
That was the vibe the trailer was giving to me, and I was like, I'm not putting myself through this. I've been put through enough with 5 Michael Bay movies. Like if it wasn't for Bumblebee, like I would have been out a long time ago. Bumblebee was amazing. I love that movie.
Yeah.
The opening
Like,
sequence of them fighting on Cybertron, friggin' that's like the best 30 seconds of Transformers you're ever gonna get.
and that's why I went to go see Beast Wars or whatever that one was called, because I thought it was going to be a continuation of Bumblebee, which was phenomenal. I
Yeah,
thought it was, you know, kind of righted the wrongs of the other movies that came before it.
right.
And then it was like they're just like, nah, we're just gonna forget about that and go back to this.
Yeah,
But like
right
I
back
had
to Michael
texted
Bay.
you earlier in the week, like Transformers is getting great reviews.
Yeah.
And like you were like, I don't know. And then this weekend you were like, Joe, go see this. And I'm like, are you messing
Yeah.
with me? Like, is this a joke you're trying
Yeah.
to play?
That was the text. I wrote to him. I wrote him a very nice thing about the movie. I don't want to tell you how I thought about it, but I was like, dude, this is what I think of the movie. And you're like, are you fucking with me? I was like, no, man, I'm totally not messing with you. Like, go see it. You got to go see it. It's definitely worth seeing.
As soon as
Um,
you told me I was on vacation, I'm like, where can I find a theater? Because I gotta go see it right now.
yeah.
I got in at like 1:30 this afternoon. I dropped off my bags in my apartment and I went to the 2:30 movie just so we could do this tonight.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So let's jump into it. All right. So we've done 20 minutes of talking about Transformers and how much we love it. But this movie, no spoilers right now, and I'll put up a spoilers once we get to spoilers. Um, I absolutely love this movie. This movie
Same.
was fantastic. In my opinion, this could potentially be, and I'll tell you why I think this later. I can't tell you right now why I think this because it would spoil the movie. Um, but I think that this could potentially be the best Transformers movie ever made.
I agree with you 100%. It is for me at least.
Yeah. BX Gunner 81 says this movie was awesome, and we completely agree with you. Again, I think that I went into this movie thankfully with open mind because of Chris Gore and how he praised it, and he said specifically in his review that the trailers didn't do this movie justice, and
Right.
that's what hooked me in to go see it. That was 100% it. So I really liked it. They got the characters correct. The animation was cool. The story didn't have any plot holes in it, I don't think. And I'm a real pain in the ass when it comes to stuff like that. I always try to pick apart plot holes and say, why'd they do that? There was no reason to do that. Did you
There
see
was
any?
one for me. There was one for me, but like we'll talk about it later. But
Okay.
it didn't take me out of the movie.
Gotcha. Okay. There was no messaging. There was no wokeness. RC could have been a little, she was a little yappy, but I didn't mind that. She was okay. Plus it's Scarlett Johansson.
You mean
Um,
Alita 1?
Alita 1. Yes. Is she not,
Yeah.
she doesn't become RC
No,
eventually?
no,
That's a,
RC was in the movie, but we'll
yeah.
talk about that later.
Okay. I thought I saw RC in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Okay, but that's Alita 1, right?
yeah,
So, yeah, so I love the storyline. I love the animation. I thought the voice actors were good. I was really worried that not having um oh my god, who's Optimus's
Peter
McClellan?
Cullen.
Peter Cullen. Not having Peter Cullen's voice in there, that was concerning to me, but in the end it didn't bother me. I think
Yep.
Chris Hemsworth did a great job, especially at the end when he gets a little more gritty at the end
Yep.
because there was a change, right? There's a change in his voice towards the end, which I really appreciated. Um, we'll talk about all these things as we go along. So it's going to be spoiler time, right? So I'll put up a spoiler banner real quick. So this is it. This is spoilers. We're gonna get into it. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to save this, stop here and we'll come back and come back to us another time after you see the movie and we'll talk about it then. But we're gonna get into the movie now. So the storyline. It starts off now. This is very reminiscent of a book series that Joe and I read a while ago. So let me share that screen with you of the book titles before we get into this movie. So this is one of the books. Okay, it's Transformers Exodus. This is one of two novels that deals with the war of Cybertron and how the Autobots become Autobots, how the Decepticons become Decepticons, how Megatron and Optimus Prime come into power. So I think this movie is a reflection of this novel,
100%.
right? I loved this book, and I do not like to read. Reading is one of my least favorite things. I much rather listen to an audiobook or watch a movie or a show, but I was glued to this book. This book came out a long time ago. I was still living in Staten Island in my first house that we ever bought. So this kind of outlines the same story that you're going to see in this movie. The other book, which Joe read, but I'd never got a chance to read, was this one. It's called Exiles. And this is when they leave Cybertron and it's about their travels to Earth. And I started reading it and I fell off. I don't know why. I can't remember why I fell off, but I did. Did you like this book?
Oh, I loved it. It was just as good as the first one.
All right. Maybe I have to pick it up again.
Yeah,
I have
get
to
the
try.
audiobook.
Oh, hey, okay. I'll definitely give that a shot. So let me go back to the Transformers one movie here. We got a comment. Let me bring up a comment here. Okay. BX Gunner 81 says, my household is a Decepticon stronghold. Oh,
Oh boy.
Do they like all the Decepticons? I gotta say, my favorite character overall. You can't. You're not allowed to pick Optimus, right? If you had to pick another character besides Optimus, mine would 1000% be Soundwave. I am a big Soundwave fan. Who's
Soundwave
your
superior.
who's your favorite character other than Optimus Prime?
Other than Optimus Prime, I always like Grimlock.
Grimlock was cool. I still have my
That was
original Grimlock.
Yep. I always like the
Gunner.
the B-list characters.
Yeah, Andre. Yeah, I like the B-list characters too. I have a Perceptor. I have an original Perceptor because I went to school for biology and stuff, so I'm a little nerdy like that. But I have the original microscope Perceptor guy. He was always cool. He didn't do much fighting, but he was cool. His eyepiece was a cannon though, which was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Gunner says he's never read these, but he'll have to check them out. Definitely, dude. You got to check those books out. You're gonna love them, and come back to us after you read them and tell us how you like them. And his favorite is Starscream. You gotta love Starscream. And I was
Yep.
really surprised with the voice actor that did Starscream in this movie.
Oh my god.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, is that? I look at my wife and I look at my brother and I'm like, is that Steve Buscemi as Starscream? And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay.
Yep.
We'll give it a shot. That's fine. That's fine. Um, so the story opens up with Optimus Prime. He's not Optimus Prime yet. He's oh geez,
Orion
what's his name?
Pax.
Orion Pax. Whew. Okay, he's Orion Pax. Prior to him becoming, he's just a worker, right? He's a worker bee, and he breaks into like a library kind of structure, and he loves going into the archives of the history of Cybertron to learn about the history of Cybertron. And I like the way they did that because they're giving you a background of the story, um, but they're not like they did it in a really cool and interesting way, right? They're not just saying it's not just conversations between two characters that's forced. It's Orion Pax doing something that he always does. He always goes in and tries to find out more history about the past. And what you find out is that Cybertron itself is an actual, I guess it's an actual transformer, right?
Right.
The transformer Primus made himself into Cybertron, and he gave the matrix of leadership to a very special set of transformers called the Primes. And there are a set of primes. I forget how many of them. I don't know if there were 7 of them or 9 of them, but there's a
There was a
set of
bunch.
primes. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of primes, which that was one part that I never knew. I knew that there was always a prime, like there was always kind of like a president or a leader, but I didn't know that there were many of them. Is that made just for the movie? I'm not sure.
I mean, they kind of take a notion that there has been a progression of primes,
Mhm.
and they kind of just expanded upon it as I think that was also in one of the movies where like they had primes that had to fight against the fallen,
Right.
and then the fallen defeats the primes and becomes the evil being and whatnot. So they
Right.
kind of like took a little bit from the cartoon and a little bit from the movies and meshed it together.
Right. I think this did it better. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the movies you had like you and I totally forgot about that, Joe. And they had the Fallen, and I hated the Fallen. I
Hmm.
couldn't stand that stuff, right? Because they made that up for the movie when they already had something that they could have used. It's like what Marvel and DC does. They have material and they decide to change it and alter it for whatever reason I don't know.
Hmm.
But they do. And why not just use the source material? So in this movie, you find out that there was a war between the primes and the quintessons, which are part of the G1 lore. You have the quintessons in the Transformers the movie in 1986. You even had the quintesson show up in like I think season 4 of G1. Right after the
Yep.
movie came out, they ended up showing up in the cartoons.
Hmm.
So they took the lore that you already know about and they meshed it into this movie so perfectly. So there was a war between, you find out when he's in the archives, there's a war between the quintessons and the primes. The primes lose, and that stops the flow of energon on Cybertron. And now all of the beings on Cybertron who are living inside of Cybertron, not even on the surface of Cybertron, they're living inside of Cybertron. Their whole existence is there to mine energon from the core of Cybertron. And that's when you meet Orion Pax, and that's when you meet D16, right? Who is the Megatron character, and they're buddies. They're like best buds. They're best friends. They hang out outside of work. They hang out inside of work. They get each other out of trouble, and they're very they play off each other really really well. I think there were a couple of times where I was like, okay, these guys are really really friendly with each other. Like me and Joe are really like best friends, and I don't think we've ever fist pumped as much as D16 and Orion Pax fist pumped in this movie. It's like I got you, man. Yeah, boom, fist pump. Yeah, fist pump. They were fist pumping like every 5 minutes. But I think the whole point of that was to show you that they were really, really tight knit people.
Right.
So let's talk about the characters of Prime of Orion Pax and D16. What did you how do you feel that they did with those two characters?
I thought it was such a clever way to make Optimus Prime or Orion Pax the immature one,
Yeah,
and D16 like the voice of reason,
yeah,
and like Pax the whole like first half an hour is just him scheming how to get the attention of Sentinel Prime,
Yeah.
how to get out of that like miner's job and like get promoted to like president or CEO without like
Right.
climbing like the rungs of the corporate ladder.
Right.
And D16 just like, dude, like I'm just happy where we're at. Like this is great. Don't rock the boat. Leave it alone. It's like,
Yeah.
nah. Come on. We got a thing going on this week. I got tickets to. We're gonna go.
Yeah.
Come join me, right? Like and that
Right.
like that moment leading up to the race.
Yeah.
What was it called?
The Cybertron 5000.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Or the Energon 5000. I forget. It was the 5000.
that's like you and me going to a concert. Like I got tickets to this show, but like we get there, and
Yeah.
like I don't have tickets. We're gonna sneak into the back door, right?
Right, right.
Right.
So Joe brought up Sentinel Prime. Now Sentinel Prime is basically like the president of Cybertron, and
Right.
he has promised all of the people on Cybertron that he is out there looking for the matrix of leadership. And the reason that the matrix of leadership needs to be found is because that's what controls the flow of energon on the planet. So when the primes got defeated by the quintessons, the matrix of leadership was lost, and therefore all the energon on the planet dried up. And what he's doing is he's telling all the constituents of Cybertron that he is doing his best to find the matrix of leadership, and he's going out on these missions, these dangerous missions to the surface of Cybertron to find the matrix of leadership. And every time he comes back and tells them he didn't find it, or there was a hiccup, or the quintesson stopped him again, everyone gets real defeated. And he's like, "Oh, we're just going to work harder, and we have to mine more energon." And he's just working his miners to the bone. Let's see, we have a comment here. Let's see. Oh, Oasis. Yeah, we'll talk about Oasis later, Gunnar. We got to stay on track. But yeah, Oasis is coming to town. I will get tickets. Don't you worry about that. I'm gonna get tickets to Oasis. But yeah, so Sentinel Prime is this like godly figure that everyone on Cybertron kind of looks up to and idolizes almost as a god. And he's played by John Hamm, and I didn't know that until the end.
I didn't know about that till that right now, and I was looking at the cast of characters.
Yeah, so we're looking at the cast, and I was like, "Who was John Hamm?" And my wife's like, "Was he Sentinel Prime?" And I was like, "He must have been Sentinel Prime. That's exactly who it was." And he played a great, like, sleazy slime ball character. He's a
Hmm.
real politician in this. He's not a tough guy until like the very end. He's more of a sleazy manipulator politician in this movie, right? I thought he was a great character. I really thought he did a
Oh
good
yeah,
job as that.
I agree.
So Joe had mentioned that they got tickets to something. So Orion Pax told D16, "Listen, we're gonna go watch the Energon 5000." I don't know if it was the Energon 5000 or the Cybertron 5000. It's a car race, right? It's like the Indy 500, right? But for Autobots and or Transformers. So now there's a class, and maybe you can explain it better than me. There's a class of Transformers that have transformation cogs, which are pieces of machinery that sit in their chest that allow them to transform into an automobile or a plane or something like that, right? The miners, all of the little people, all of the workers in Cybertron don't have a transformation cog. Is that how you saw it? Who how do you think they decided who got the cogs and who didn't?
I think so. The way it was described in the movie was at their birth, the cog was taken from them.
Yeah, but
So I
before
think
that, before we knew about that, like
so. I think
all
whoever I think all the
the
Transformers that we see transforming
yeah,
were like the elder Transformers who had cogs, who they couldn't be like, "Hey, we're taking this from you." But
okay,
anybody else that came after them were kind of like, "Hey, get rid of that."
yeah,
Like
because there's lots of people in that race, right? There are hundreds
yeah,
of Transformers in that race, and they're able to transform into machines.
and even just
And
general Transformers that were throughout Cybertron, like on the streets, were able to transform.
were they
Yeah, there were a couple like
okay?
throughout. Uh, I mean, anything that was a vehicle flying through the streets was a transformer,
That's right. You're right.
right?
So
You know,
do you think it was only the working class and the
uh,
miners?
I thought about that, and it could have been. It could have been a way to be like, "This is how we're gonna get you to mine
Yeah.
our Cybertron. Like, you can't transform, so go to work. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing special about you."
That's interesting because then that leads you to the question, do the people so say they're the lower class, right? Let's call anyone without a transformation cog the lower class.
Right.
And let's call everyone a middle and upper class, right? So
Mm,
Sentinel Prime is obviously the upper class with all his cronies. But the normal people, the normal, transformers that were flying around during the day and just doing whatever, do they have any idea of what's going on, or are they in the dark as well? What do you
I'm
think?
assu the
You got to
way
assume
they
they're in the
told
dark.
right, the way they told the story, like,
Yeah.
that we're gonna talk about, everything is everybody's in the dark.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
like, I'm assuming if I'm Sentinel Prime who is in control, I could just make up a story of why these new Transformers don't have a cog.
Right.
They weren't built
So
that way or whatever, a
right.
defect.
Sure. So the main characters that we are introduced to, one Orion Pax, two D16, we covered them. D16 is the straight and narrow kind of let's just do our job and keep our nose to the grindstone and we'll just get through the day. And Orion Pax is like, nah, man, we got to go up that. We got to reach higher levels, right? And he's the creative one. He's the rebellious one. And you don't that I didn't know how to think about that when I was first watching the beginning of this movie because I was like, how are they going to? Because what happens to Optimus and what Megatron is. And it's like,
Right.
how are they gonna get there? I was worried about that. I was like, how are they going to make this big leap from D16 being this straight and narrow, follow the rules kind of guy to friggin' Megatron, who's one of the most evil characters ever created. And
Yep.
but they did a great job with it. They did an absolute great job with it. We met B.
Mhm.
What was his name? Like his name wasn't B. It wasn't
Yeah,
Bumblebee.
I can't remember
It
the
was like B,
nickname, yeah.
it was a number. It was like B 270 217 or something like that, right?
Yep.
It was like like a Star Warsy type of drone character or whatever. Droid character. Then you had Alita, who is our female um character.
Mhm.
She was like a boss in the mines, right?
Yes.
She was a higher up in the mines. So she was working her way up. B was voiced by the guy from Key and Peele.
Michael Michael Key.
Keegan Michael Key, right? So he's the key
Yeah.
part of the Key and Peele. He
Yep.
was great. He was absolutely great. And if I didn't see him at the beginning of the movie, when they introduced at the very beginning of the movie, the voice actors for D16, Orion Pax, and Bumblebee come out and say, "Enjoy the show," right? And it's Chris Hemsworth and I forget the guy's name who did D16 and Key from Key and Peele. And I was like, "Oh my god, who's he going to be in the movie?" And then when I heard B's voice, I was like, "Oh, that's Key." So there was. Did you catch the Atron
Yep,
reference,
I made a note of that.
dude? So if you watch Key and Peele, there's an episode of Key and Peele where Key plays a substitute teacher and he can't call the names correctly as the roll call, so he calls Aaron Aaron, and no one answers him, and he flips out and he throws the desk or whatever. And I'm sure you've all seen it out there. All the listeners, I'm sure, have seen that. And B has been punished and put down into the sub basement of Cybertron to be basically a sanitation guy, right? He's throwing away the trash in the basement,
Mhm.
and he's all alone. He's by himself, so he's like losing his mind. So he makes a bunch of robots and names them, but they're inanimate, right? They don't. They're just spare parts that he just stuck together and has names for them. And one of them is called Steve, which my daughter thought was absolutely hysterical. Every time they brought up Steve, she looked at me. She's like, "Steve, Steve." Um, but there was one of the robots who was called Aotron or something like that. And if you didn't know who he was and you didn't watch Key and Peele, you weren't going to get that joke. But I
Right.
guarantee you, every adult sitting in that movie got that joke,
Yep.
and I completely appreciated that. Another main character you have was Sentinel Prime, played by John Hamm. We talked about him. There was Arachnid, which is like Sentinel Prime's like Sentinel Prime's Soundwave, right?
Hmm.
It's like his little spy, but
Yep.
she's like a spidery robot thing, which was pretty cool. And I think the only other main character was Alpha Trion, but we didn't get up to him yet. I think
Right.
that's really it, right? Um, so back to the story, you find out that as the our main characters meet B, so they get punished, right? So they enter the race, right? I go back to the race. I forgot about that. So they enter the race, Orion Pax and D16, and D16 had no idea that this was the plan of Orion Pax, and they enter the race and they don't have cogs, so they can't transform. So they're in this Indy 500 style race against transformers that are zooming past them and flying past them and driving past them, and they're running. They're literally just running because they can't transform. But they are extra special and extraordinary transformers who are creative and have the ability to kind of overcome these challenges, and they figure out a way to hop onto other transformers and kind of ride them through the race, and how to kind of like, maybe, I don't know about take shortcuts, but there was like an engine or some type of booster thing that they kind of got inside, and it threw them like through half the race, and they almost finished in first. It was pretty funny how they ended up finishing like almost dead last, but
To
they
me,
get
it was like Mario Kart, where you have like the
yes,
hidden tunnels,
yes.
like or like the ramps and the jumps to get you through certain things to get ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah, they definitely played on those features. But go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that was great. That was a great analogy. It was very much like Mario Kart. And it kind of felt like Ready Player One
Yep.
when they did the race in Ready Player One. I thought it was kind of reminiscent of that as well. Um, so they get accolades for even finishing the race because they're minors and they don't have cogs and they have no right being in this race, right? They have no, they're, no one thought that they would finish anything but last, and they would never even put up a fight. So Sentinel Prime finds them, and D16's like, "Oh man, we're going to be in so much trouble. We shouldn't have entered the race." And Sentinel Prime comes in and he looks all stern, and he's like, "Oh, I loved it. You guys were great, and I'm going to send you to my private suite so that you guys can get massages and get pampered for a little while." And then their boss comes, and I forget the boss's name. I
Oh,
forget his
Darkwing.
name. Darkwing. Darkwing is funny, man. I loved that character. Was really cool. Darkwing's like the manager
Yep.
of the mines, and he takes Orion Pax and D16 and throws them into the dungeon, basically with Bumblebee. I'm just gonna call him B, and that's where they meet B, and that's where they stumble upon this little hologram, kind of like Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
They kind of stumble upon Obi-Wan Kenobi's hologram that tells them, not Obi-Wan's, Princess Leia's hologram that she sent to Obi-Wan through R2D2, and they find this hologram of Alpha Trion and the other primes, and it gives them a location, right? So they think, or Orion Pax thinks, listen, this is our chance. Like we might have the coordinates of the matrix of leadership right here in our hands, and if this information can help Sentinel Prime find the matrix of leadership, they'll have to promote us. We'll have to be something than what more than what we are, because that's what
Right.
he wants to be, right? And I think that's what we all want to be. We want to be something more than what we are, right? I have a job, and I have multiple jobs that sometimes feel very fulfilling and sometimes feel very, very frustrating. And you always think to yourself, what if I would have done that? Or what if I could have done something different? Could I have been more important in this world? And the older I get, the more I think about that. Like what's going to be left behind of me after I'm gone? What are people going to remember? And that's what Optimus Prime wants. He doesn't want to just be a minor. He wants to be something that people remember. He wants to be, a part of the world that is important, right? That people remember. And this is his chance, he thinks. And D16 is like, nope, I want nothing to do with this. We're not going there. And they end up trying to scope out the terrain where this map leads them that they find. The map tells them to go to the surface, and that's the next part of the adventure. Did I sum that up okay?
Yeah. Spot on.
Okay. Spot on. All right, cool. So now they end up going on this adventure, and they have to get it. There's a train that takes all of like the waste products from the center of Cybertron where they work to the surface to throw away, I guess, to put in, garbage dumps or whatever, things like that. So they get on a train. And guess who's on the train? Alita 1, right? Alita 1's on the train, and that's how they meet up with her. So you have the four of the robots. You have
Well,
D16, Orion
she
Pax,
gets
B.
stuck on the train with him,
Yeah, because she was loading the train,
right?
right?
And
She
then
was
like
she was loading the train.
Prime and Megatron kind of like show themselves, and she's going to run to get them arrested, and then she gets trapped with them again,
Yeah.
and she's kind of like, "You guys again? Like, come on!"
Yeah, because they got her in trouble in the first 15
Right?
minutes that we kind of skipped over that we don't need to go through.
No.
But she kind of gets trapped on the train, and then Orion Pax is like, listen, there's a reason we're here. We have this map. We think we can find the matrix of leadership. What do you say we go on this mission? And they convince her, all right, fine. But and that's when she kind of takes charge, which annoyed me slightly, but it was okay.
You
We
know,
went
Steve,
through it. Yeah.
I liked it because two different characters take charge from Orion Pax,
Hmm.
and that kind of was like, for me, like a little bit of symbolism. Like he's not ready to be the character
Oh,
that we know,
okay.
right? Like it kind of gives him that like inferiority, or like he's immature. Like we don't trust him. Like what he's saying could be true, but we still don't believe him. You know?
Yeah. And there's another time now that you bring that up that I don't know if it's immaturity or if it's him figuring things out and letting things play out so that he can understand it better.
I have a theory
Because
at the end when we get to the end,
okay,
but I'll save it for the end. But go ahead.
because there's a point where D16 takes the map from him and he's like, "Follow me,"
Hmm.
instead of him leading. And he kind of looks at him and he sits back and he lets it happen, but he
Yep.
doesn't let it happen because he's being a bitch. He lets it happen because he's figuring shit out.
Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a big difference between I just got bitch slapped or I'm gonna let you have this one because I'm gonna figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
You know?
That was one of the things where I'm like, okay, like she did it, he did it, like, and at the end, there's a thing that kind of like ties in the
Yeah.
Optimus Prime character, but we'll save that for
Yeah.
the end.
Okay. So they get to the point in the map where the matrix of leadership they think it is, and what they find is basically the grave site of the primes. Right? It's where all the primes died, and you see
Hmm.
the bodies of all the primes, and it's really cool. Like each one of those primes had a different style, and you could tell the difference between the primes because of the way they looked.
Yep.
And one of the primes, which I thought was really cool, was called Megatronus. Was that the name of it?
Yeah. 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 Yep.
Right? I think that's the name of it. And Megatronus had a helmet or a face that looked like the Decepticon logo, which I thought
Right.
was really cool. And we find, and I forgot to mention it, but D16's favorite prime was Megatronus, and
They
he
both looked
idolized.
up to him.
They both looked up to him because he was like the badass of the primes.
Yeah.
Right? He was the best fighter. He was the biggest and toughest one of all of the primes, and they really liked and looked up to him. And Prime, as a gift, got D16 a Megatronus sticker and put it on him, and it was a purple sticker, and it's the Decepticon logo, and he throws it on D16, which I thought was really really cool.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna hate it, but I didn't. I really liked it. So as they're scoping out this gravesite of the primes, they realize that there's a flashing light, and they go check out the flashing light and they find that it's Alpha Trion's spark, which isn't completely dead. So they feed I thought this was kind of weird. They feed Alpha Trion a cube of energon like in his mouth. I thought that was strange. Like robots don't have digestive systems, so why would you put anything in their mouths?
Well, in the
First,
cartoon, they drank
did they?
Energon. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I thought maybe they just hooked it up with like
No,
hoses
they
or
drank them
something.
from the cubes.
Oh, okay. Well, they insert a oh, wait, we got a comment here. Let's see. Billy Judd. What's up, Billy? Good to see you again. How's it going? He says, hi, guys. Good to see you. I hope you like Transformers because we're in it. We're in it right
What's
now.
up, Billy?
Um, so they stick a energon cube, which is like the size of a sugar cube, in the mouth of Alpha Trion, and he wakes up. Right. And he wakes up and he's all he doesn't know what's going on, but he meets them and he tells them the truth of what happened, right? And this is Act 2, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And which is really funny because, like, at what point did you know that Sentinel Prime was the bad guy, Joe?
Oh, I had a feeling. Well, we kind of had a feeling like.
Like, the second I met him, I knew he was the bad guy.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Sentinel Prime was also the bad guy in one of the movies,
Okay.
and I think he was also a bad guy in one of like the animated series.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew him to be like not legit.
Yeah. So we get up to the cave area where they're looking at the primes, and my wife taps me on my leg and she goes, "I think Sentinel Prime's the bad guy." And I'm like, "You do?" She's like, "Yeah, I think he's the bad guy." And I turn to my brother. I'm like, "She thinks Sentinel Prime's the bad guy." Like, and
No way.
she's like, "You're being a jerk." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm being a jerk. I'm sorry." I was like, How did you not know he's the bad guy? Of course he's the bad guy, right?" So the truth is, right, and what Alpha Trion tells them is that they were deceived by Sentinel Prime. Sentinel Prime was basically their administrative assistant, right? He was
Mhm.
he was the secretary of the Primes, and he was tired of being the secretary of the Primes, and he got together with the Quintessons and told the Quintessons where they were going to be at a certain point in the war or whatever, and they ambushed the Primes. And he made a deal with the Quintessons that he would be the ruler of Cybertron and he would feed them the energon from the planet. So this whole time that Sentinel Prime has been telling the citizens of Cybertron that he's going on these missions to find the matrix of leadership, which is ultimately going to save the planet. He's actually been feeding the Quintessons all of the energon that the miners have been taking out of the Earth of Cybertron. Um, when D16 hears this, he loses his freaking mind and he feels deceived, right? Decepticon deceived. He feels deceived. He feels angry. And he goes from the straight laced kind of worker bee to I want to kill Sentinel Prime.
Yep.
I want to rip his spark out of his chest. Right. And Alpha Trion also tells them, he says, "What happened to your cogs? Why don't you have any cogs?" Because he looks at all of these robots and he's like, "Why don't you have any cogs? What happened to them?" And they're like, "Well, what do you mean? We're only worker robots. We don't get cogs." And Alphatron's like, "What are you talking about? Every life form that is born of Cybertron is born with a cog. You should have a cog." And that's when they find out that Sentinel Prime has been removing the cogs out of all the new life forms, all the new robots that are made on the planet. He's removing all of their ability to transform, and he's keeping them in this lower class on purpose so that he can have
Mhm.
workers. Right? He's making slaves. All right.
Yep.
There's your cultural part of the whole story. He's making them
Yeah.
slaves, essentially. Right. Um, Let's see. We have a comment here real quick. Rito. Hey, Rito showed up. Oh, what the fuck, guys? I thought it was 10 p.m. I'm sorry. It was 10 p.m. I messed up, Rito. My bad.
Cybertron time.
Cybertron, Cybertron time. Yeah, that was my fault. I thought I put 9 p.m. Eastern on Instagram. I thought I did. Anyway, um, so what Alpha Trion does, which is I thought really cool, he was like, listen, take the cogs of the other primes and you fulfill your destiny to be transformers because you guys are great transformers and you deserve the cogs of the greatest transformers. Okay. Oh, we got another thing here. Super Gamer and Plus Show says, "I see the movie. It was really good. Soundwave's voice actor did the best job." Yeah, we're gonna get to Soundwave in just a minute, but I completely agree with you, Super Gamer and Plus Show. Rito says, "Who the Funko Pop below you?" That's Joe. What do you mean? Who the Funko Pop's below me? That's Joey Jojo. How do you not know Joe?
Special
Joe
appearance
Tuck.
just for you, Rito.
Yeah, man. He's my Transformer buddy. Um, so they get the cogs, and then they kind of have this really cool transformation where they become larger. They get weapons for the first time.
Yep.
Um, they just look more robust as characters. And you can tell that their confidence is different now because their bodies have changed
Yeah,
essentially.
they hit
You know,
puberty.
yeah, they hit puberty real late, but they hit it hard, and they end up getting seen, right? So they're looking out. They leave this cave, and they get seen by Arachnid, who's the lieutenant of Sentinel Prime, and there's a chase sequence, right? And in the chase sequence, they're running. And I forget who it was. I think it was D16 who was like, "We can transform now. Why don't we just transform? Why are we running?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, why are they running?" And they're running because they don't know how to do it yet. They just
Right.
got the cogs. It's like a baby deer on fresh legs. Like they don't have any idea. So they're trying to transform. And this was part of the, laughter and joke part of the movie, which I thought was really appropriate. And I thought the
Yeah.
whole movie was going to be slapstick like this. But it was an appropriate time because they're trying to get away like from a legit threat, and they're half transforming. Their legs are becoming wheels, but their heads are getting stuck inside of them and all this stuff. And I thought it was really, really cool how they were able to do that. Let's see. Super Gamer says, when I see the movie, I was thinking Frank was doing Soundwave, Frank Welker. It turns out it was an old fan that was a fan of the old YouTube back in the day. Oh, that's really interesting. That's cool. So the voice actor for Soundwave was an old fan of the
Oh, that's
show.
fun.
That's really cool. And he did a great job. He did a great job. So what happens from here is they get captured by, was it called the Royal Guard? What was the name of the higher
The
guard?
high guard. Yeah, high
The
guard.
High
Yeah.
Guard, right? So all of our main characters get captured by the High Guard, and I thought this was so well done. So you see Soundwave, now that we got Super Gamer here, we had Soundwave and Shockwave
Mhm.
standing beside the throne. And who's sitting up on the friggin' throne? Starscream.
Oh,
Steve
so good.
Buscemi. Steve Buscemi Starscream. And the way he was sitting in the chair was correct, right?
Yep.
The way he was kind of, arrogantly sitting in the chair. It was very reminiscent of Transformers the movie, right? When Megatron dies and he takes over as king of
Yep.
the Decepticons and he's sitting in the throne, and it was the same thing, but here he actually is the king, right? He is like the main general of the High Guard, and the High Guard were basically that was basically the army for the primes, right? Am
Yep.
I mistaken on that?
Nope, you're right.
See, Rito says someone told me someone flips the bird in the film. Yes, so
It's
um,
implied.
all right, they don't show the bird being flipped, but he puts his hand up and the finger starts to come up, and they cut away from it. And I wrote that in my notes, and that could have potentially ruined the movie for me, but it didn't. Um, but yes, the someone whoever told you that was correct. Um, Super Gamer says, I love the line sound waves did like, oh, I don't know what that last two words are. Tiger E Jet. I don't know what that is. But he did have a good line. I can't remember what the line was, but I remember saying to myself, that was a perfect line for Soundwave. And so basically the High Guard is now talking to these four individuals and saying, we're the High Guard. They're explaining who they are and that they can't win and this and that. And then D16 basically takes over the High Guard, just like he should have, right?
Well, he
How many
fights
times
Starscream for it.
Right. How many times have we seen Starscream try to take the power away from Megatron,
Yeah.
and Megatron has to give him a big old backhand and tell him who's boss?
He chokes him out.
It was great. It was great. And then by the end of that little fight, D16 is the leader of the High
Mhm.
Guard, and Starscream is just a little whiny bitch. And Orion Pax is starting to figure stuff out again, right? Because this was after D16 gave him the attitude about the map, and now he's seeing D16 like, almost like dictatorship D16,
Yeah.
like rallying the troops and giving speeches, and really getting people behind his cause. And Orion Pax is like, oh, this ain't good. So then we got more. So I got some more comments. Let's see. Rito says, "Can I bring my nephew? He's 7. Abso-freaking-lutely, you bring your
Yeah.
nephew. Bring your nephew. We were going to talk about this a little bit later, but definitely bring your nephew. I brought my 8-year-old daughter and she loved it. Super Gamer says, I love how we see Iocon troops that look like Viacons for Transformers Prime. Yep. There was a lot of throwbacks to the cartoons that I really enjoyed. A lot of throwbacks to G1 and to the newer cartoons as well. It was very good. At this point, we get our 4 protagonists split up, right? Because there's an ambush on the High Guard, and D16 and B get taken one place, and Orion Pax and Alita 1 get taken to another place. And this is where Orion Pax starts to show his ability to lead, right? And Alita 1 starts to become more of a follower of him than a leader, right? Where she's for the most part really bossy and telling him what to do. And at this point, she's more like, listen, you're the leader, not because you're better than me, but because people will follow you. You have the charisma and you have the ability to get people to follow you. And I thought that was really good. I thought that was well done. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. Like that was a turning point where, like you said, you had Megatron or D16 like take his spot as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, now Prime has to do something, otherwise it overshadows him.
Right.
And he steps in that role and he takes over that High Guard.
Right.
And that's a funny scene too.
Oh yeah, for sure. We got another comment here. Super Gamer says, I remember being in tears seeing Prowl and Jazz in the movie in the G1 forums because Jazz's death makes me sad and Prowl's death in G1 gives me PTSD. Dude, that 86 movie gave every kid in 1986 PTSD. And I'm going to get into why I think this movie is a better movie than that one in a minute. But now the shit kind of hits the fan because Sentinel Prime is basically telling D1, D16 and B that, he's just going to switch the story around and tell everybody in Cybertron that he's the one that's been ruining Sentinel Prime's attempts to find the matrix of leadership and all this stuff. And that he's gonna basically just execute them. So what happens is Orion Pax goes back to Cybertron and he gives his first speech as a leader, which I thought was fantastic. Right? He goes into the mines and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Orion Pax, what happened to you? Like you look so different." And it was cool because they showed the difference in height now, because Orion Pax was the same height as all the other miners, but now that he's got the cog, he's literally double the size of every other miner in the mine, right? And they're all in awe of him. And dude, one thing that he did, which I thought was so good on the director and the producers level, they made him kneel. He knelt down and spoke to them on their level. He didn't stand up like D16 above his, workers or above his soldiers and talk to them. He got down on his knee, put himself at their level, and described to them how they have to win and what they have to do to win and how he's going to help them win and restore Cybertron to its rightful place.
They did that really well because as he's doing that, D16 is with Sentinel Prime on his knees as a captive, and he's kind of rebelling against Sentinel Prime by standing. And Sentinel Prime's like, "What are you doing? Like, I'm going to kill you now or later." And he's like, "I'm not going to kneel for anyone." And then you have Prime, who is with his troops kneeling, and it's like the dynamic where they were the same, or it's now changing.
And that's why we are such a great team at this. I didn't even realize that because they're going back and forth to them in the same scene where one's kneeling and one's standing. That's a great observation, Joe. Let's see. We got another 2 comments here. Rito says, so what are you saying? Is the humans were the worst part of the Transformers, like the humans in 100%.
Rito, no humans in this movie. Not one.
There are not a single human in this movie, and that's why this movie was so good. But listen, in the G1 cartoons, I liked Spike. Spike was
Yeah,
a good character, and he didn't take away from the robots, or he didn't take away from the Autobots and Decepticons, the
I
Transformers.
agree. I agree.
And I don't think Shia LaBeouf was bad either. I liked Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf, it was about a kid in his car.
I
And
just
that
didn't
first
need the
movie,
military and all those guys.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
get the military out of there. Get Mark Wahlberg, because Shia LaBeouf, I don't think at that time was a big star. I think that was kind of like the beginning of him. So they didn't have to give him a lot of screen time. It
Yeah.
was more about the Autobots than it was about him. But once they got Mark Wahlberg and he's going to demand 80% screen time, then it becomes about him and not about the Autobots.
hmm
Super Gamer says, I remember knowing the miners look because I into the unknown bots looks. Yes. Yeah, that's pretty. Was it me or did you see Wheeljack? Was
Oh,
Wheeljack in
Wheeljack.
that movie?
Yeah, he's on the train.
Yeah,
He's in the. He has a speaking line, I believe.
I think so too. In the mines, or they're actually
He's the
mining.
one that causes the explosion in the mine.
That's right. He hits the vein, right? He
Yeah,
hits the vein of Energon.
which is Wheeljack. Wheeljack always blew stuff up in the G1 series.
And then
I had
Jazz
a
got go ahead.
I had a running list of all the Transformers that were making cameos at the beginning of the movie, and I just said I can't keep up with this. Like,
Oh, that's great.
I'm like just in the train scene alone, like there's like 7 of them. But then you
Oh,
see all of them. You see all of the G1 characters,
yeah.
at least the Autobots,
Hmm.
throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
That like the first season Autobots,
Yeah.
and you see like I'd say minus the camera guys and the Decepticons, you see all the jets.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
get
yeah,
all
for
6 of
sure.
them. All 6
Yeah.
jets plus Soundwave and Shockwave and Starscream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rito says, I gave up after the last Mark Wahlberg one. Didn't see Bumblebee film, so I assumed it was bad. Bumblebee is great, dude. You got to check out Bumblebee. It's just the girl. It's just like the girl who's not a big star. Definitely see Bumblebee. It's very, very cool.
She wasn't a big
Um,
star then, but now she is.
no, yeah, right. But definitely check that out.
Yep.
Super Gamer says, I remember G1 show Prowl and Blue Streak, like other brother gang, like Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Great combos with those guys. So now basically Orion Pax is gathering his workers or his army, so to speak, and D16 is kind of gathering his army, and they're all going to converge on the surface of Cybertron. Oh, not the surface, but underground in Cybertron. What they do is Orion Pax kind of hijacks Arachnid. Arachnid is kind of like the Soundwave character of Sentinel Prime, and she can see things, and she's like kind of like a spy, and she has like 100 eyes. So what they do is they hijack her kind of software to show Cybertron. They project kind of like Mysterio did with Peter Parker.
Yep.
He kind of lets the whole all of Cybertron know by seeing recordings of what she has seen in the past of Sentinel-1 betraying the Cybertronians. So like all the billboards in Cybertron, all of these TV screens in Cybertron, the street signs or whatever, they all turn into TVs and they're all projecting Sentinel Prime bowing down to the Quintessons, giving all the energon to the Quintessons, saying things like, "Oh, I took your cogs, and I'll never let you have the ability to transform." All these horrible things that are very, very incriminating to Sentinel Prime are all being projected to all of Cybertron. So now everyone is against Sentinel Prime. So Orion Pax was able to do that before Sentinel Prime was going to, because that's what Sentinel Prime was going to do to try to, blackmail D16 and Orion Pax, but they did it first. So now everyone kind of converges onto the interior of Cybertron, and this is where you get the big fight between Sentinel Prime and D16. And D16, it's very much like No Way Home or whatever the last Spider-Man movie was, where Tom Holland. Oh my God, whip whip! Right, Tom Holland. There it is. His first sign of Tom Holland voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He was gonna kill Green Goblin, and then
Right.
Toby Maguire Peter Parker comes in and says, no, listen, we can't do that. That's not what we do. That's not how we do things. And that's what happened here. So D16 was about to kill Sentinel Prime. He was going to take his cannon and blow his friggin' head off. And Orion Pax is like, listen, this isn't how we're going to do it. He's going to come to justice. Everyone knows he's bad. Like, you didn't have to do anymore. The entire
Right.
planet knows that he was the bad guy and that things are going to have to get fixed. Right. And you didn't have to do anymore. There was nothing else left to do. And he throws Orion Pax and he points his gun at Sentinel Prime and he fires. And as he fires, Orion Pax jumps in front of the gun and gets his friggin' arm blown off. Like, it was like, if it was a person, it would have been real gruesome. Like, his whole shoulder was gone, his arm is off, there's a big hole in his chest,
Yep.
and he falls into this cavern that is like never ending, right? Let's see, I got some more comments here. Billy Judd says Optimus Prime dies in the 86 movies. Yes, thank you, Billy. Yes, we are all very aware of the demise of Optimus Prime because they needed to get more toys out. That's the only reason they killed every G1 Transformer in that movie, because they wanted to get a whole new line of toys out to everybody. Okay, Super Gamer says, who remembers Optimus's death in the G1 movie? That killed every kid, hero, father, and made kids cry. Yes, still makes me
Yep.
cry. It
Yep.
still makes me cry when he turns gray on the table. When he turns gray and his face turns to the side, I cry. I still cry to this
Yep.
day. Call me whatever you want, but it still makes me cry. So then Orion falls into this void, and he falls and falls and falls. And what he's doing
Oh,
is he's
wait, wait,
falling.
wait,
Oh,
wait.
I'm sorry. What I miss?
You're missing the part where D16 catches him.
Oh, that's right. So as he's about to fall into the void, D16 puts out his hand and catches Orion Pax. And the whole movie, his eyes were yellow. D16, his eyes were yellow.
Yep.
And he looks at Orion Pax and he puts his head down so you can't see his eyes. And he lifts his eyes back up and now they're red like Megatron's eyes. And he says, I'm tired of saving you. Because the whole movie, he's been saving Orion Pax from getting in trouble.
Yep.
He's been saving Orion Pax from getting demoted or getting in trouble at work or getting arrested for being for breaking into the library. So he's like, I'm done saving you. And that's when you know he's transformed into Megatron. He's now Megatron, right? His eyes are red. He's Megatron. And he lets Orion Pax fall into this void. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot
Yep.
about
You
that.
got it. Yep.
So he falls all the way down into the center of Cybertron. And guess what? You know, at the beginning of this podcast, we said that Cybertron was a transformer. The Cybertron is itself Primus, the original Prime. And he falls down to the center of the earth, center of Cybertron. And that's where we see Alpha Trion again saying that Primus has deemed Alpha Trion, Orion Pax, worthy of the matrix of leadership. And that, you know, take this and rise as Optimus Prime. And it's freaking, you know, goosebumps and hair raising, and you get the chills just like you did when you were a kid. And you see the light come back into his eyes, and you see the armor build back up on him, and he's even bigger than he was when he got the cog.
Did you
And
catch the nod to the movie?
with what?
So, like, when Megatron gets reformatted into Galvatron,
Yes.
he's kind of actually in like the first person, and then he gets
Mm-hmm.
reformatted with the lines and all
Yeah.
that stuff. They
Oh
kind of
yeah.
do that with Prime, and I was like, that's a really smart nod to the '86 movie where like
There
you
was a ton of
reformat it.
nods.
Yep.
There were lots of nods to the original movie.
Yep.
None bigger than the one that I'm going to get to now, which is where so he gets thrown back up to the surface, and it's his job to fight D16, to fight Megatron, and to put an end to all this madness. And he does the jump, dude. He does the freaking jump, like the famous. Oh, I gotta find the picture of it. You all know what I'm talking about. Optimus Prime jump. There it is. I mean, it's the first thing that comes up.
Yep.
Let
While you're
let
looking
me
for that, I'll continue. Okay.
go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
So while Prime's coming back to the surface, Megatron is giving a speech, and like Sentinel Prime is begging for mercy. And you cut back to Prime. He's still heading up to the surface. Megatron rips Sentinel Prime in half, kind of like he does to Jazz in the movies, and then he
Yeah.
takes the cog of Megatronus out of his chest
Oh, that's
and
right.
puts
I
it in
forgot
his
about
own,
that.
and then Megatron evolves again to
Yeah.
like a more superior form. There it is.
There it is. He does the jump. He does the jump with I don't does he has a gun with him, or he picks up a gun off the ground or something,
Yeah, whatever
and
the guns that the troops were using.
he gives him this shot. But yeah, Joe, you brought up a great point. So Sentinel Prime shows D16 when he's on his when he has him on his knees. He opens up because he sees the sticker on D16 that
Mm,
Orion Pax gave him, and he says, "Oh, I see you're a fan of Megatronus." And he opens up his chest, and it's the purple cog of Megatronus.
yeah,
And he's like, I liked him too. He was always the biggest badassest prime that there was. So I took his cog, and that's when you're right. He rips out the cog from his chest and puts it in his own. That was great. But this was my favorite part of the movie. Like I
yep,
could like there are certain parts of movies that I will pause and just look at, and this is one of those. Another one is when the three Spider-Men in the last Spider-Man movie all jump and land on the Statue of Liberty as
yep,
they're about to fight the villains.
in their
Like, and they're all
poses.
in their poses because they're all different. Like the Tobey Maguire pose is slightly different than the Andrew Garfield pose, which is different than the Tom Holland pose, and they got them all right. And this, I couldn't believe they did it. I was like, he did the jump, and Nicole's just looking at me, and I'm like, he did the jump, I got a comment here. Let's see. BX Gunner, Starscream still got the worst. Still got it worse in the movie. Yeah, Starscream got it pretty
Yeah.
bad. He got thrown out into space, didn't he? He just got
No, he got
killed.
disintegrated.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Super Gamer says, I love how we just see the best G1 characters in the end of the movie.
Yep.
So at the end they fight. He doesn't kill, he doesn't he gets the better of Megatron, which is not typical for a Transformers show, right?
Right.
Typically, Megatron gets the upper hand in the fight, and then something else happens, and the Decepticons have to leave, right? That's usually what happens. And the only time that didn't happen was in the 86 movie when Megatron finishes the job, you know?
Yep.
Um, but in this one, the axe comes out, which I thought was freaking awesome. And he didn't even know it. And that's a callback to the first ever Transformers cartoon,
Were you waiting for
right?
the ball and chain to come out of Megatron's hand?
I was waiting for the ball and chain to come out of Megatron's hand. I will be honest, I was. Because in the first ever cartoon, they have a fight on an oil rig that's sinking into the ocean. And they're fighting with the axe and the ball and chain, and they're just going at each other. And I thought the way they did it was really cool. And the way that they allowed Optimus to use the axe, like he used it in different ways. He used it as like a windmill kind of thing, like
Yep.
Thor's hammer almost. He almost used it
Yep.
like Thor's hammer to stop like the laser strikes from Megatron's cannon, which is pretty cool. And then he slices his gun in half, which I thought was freaking insane. When he just like he like turns
Yep.
around and swings his axe at him and cuts his cannon in half instead of like you thought maybe, oh, he could have cut his head off or he could have cut him in half, but he just slices the cannon in half and the cannon falls to the ground and he gets in his face, and finally the shield comes on his face, right?
Yep.
The battle shield comes on Optimus Prime's face. And if I had any complaint about any Transformers show or movie that isn't G1, it was the fact that I don't want to see Optimus Prime's mouth.
Right.
He should always have the mask on, or the well, I don't know what you would call it, but you never saw Optimus Prime's face in the cartoons. And I hated seeing his face as Orion Pax, but then I thought to myself, you know what? He's not Optimus yet.
Yep.
He's Orion Pax, and this is the way he looks, you know? And then I started thinking about, I was like, they never showed mouths. And I looked around, and of course they did. Jazz had a mouth, and Bumblebee had a mouth, and Smokescreen had a mouth, and Starscream had a mouth. They all had mouths. Like, what are you talking about? It was only Optimus that didn't have a mouth, and that really bothered me. But in this movie, they did it really well. And at the end, the voice of Chris Hemsworth gets more gritty, and
Yep.
he gets more John Wayne He tries his best to do a John Wayne impression without trying to do a John Wayne impression. And there was a callback to the Michael Bay movies. I don't know if you
Mhm.
recall that part where he's like, "This is a message to all the Autobots," you know, because that I don't think that was a thing in the cartoons. That was a thing in the
No,
movie,
no. But
right?
this right before, or right after he's defeated Megatron or during the fight, I can't remember the line, but Megatron uses a line that he always says to Prime
One
in
shall
all
fall,
of
maybe.
no, it was like something along the lines like "It's over, Prime," or something like that,
Oh yeah,
like
that's right. That's right.
and I'm like, throughout the whole movie, they use little, like, nods to, like, "Roll
Yeah,
out," "More than meets the eye," "Till
yeah,
all are one." Like, they
yeah,
threw all that stuff in there very nonchalantly. I'm like, the real fans will catch that.
yeah. This isn't over, Prime, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yes, yes,
Something like
that's what it
that.
was, yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that. And he gets into Megatron's face, and he's like, "You are banned from Cybertron. Never return. Take your high guard and get the hell out of here." And he gives all of the other Autobots. Well, he takes out the Matrix of leadership, right? Just like Hot Rod took out the Matrix of leadership and puts it up, and he opens it up, and the energon starts flowing through Cybertron again, and all of the cogs that were taken out of the Transformers like rise up out of the voids in the planet and all get put back into all the robots, which I thought was so cool. It's like their souls,
Oh,
dude. It's
so
like
good, yeah.
it's literally their soul. That's what it's supposed to be like imagery of, right?
Mhm.
Like their souls are returning to their bodies because their souls are ripped from them to be made into slaves. And like that's where the movie kind of ends off, where you have the Autobots, and he's like, to all the this is a message for the enemies of the Autobots. We will never stop fighting for what's right, and if you try to stop us, we'll kick your ass, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then the credits roll, and it's like, damn, that was freaking good. And this is why I think it's better than the '86 movie. Optimus wins. That's what you wanted to see in the '86 movie. You wanted
Yep.
nothing more than for Optimus to finally win, right? Because you watch 3 seasons of the show and he doesn't necessarily win. He might stop them for a little while, but he never wins. I don't think he ever
Right.
really gets a real victory. And there's different reasons for him not to get victories. There's reasons where he stops himself because he doesn't want to go over the line and kill. And then there's, things happen and messes things up and he can't win that way, you know? And then the movie happens, Transformers the movie, where he's trying to do the right thing and it gets him killed, and right, and Hot Rod gets him killed. Um, and in this one, he wins, and it's such a good feeling that I've been waiting for Optimus to win for 38 years, and he
Yeah.
finally won, and he
Well,
did
you
it in a
know
great
why
way.
they don't win in the TV series, so you could have more episodes to watch.
Correct,
But,
correct.
like
I get that.
the movie should have been they could have done the '86 movie where Prime wins, he hands over the Matrix of leadership, and then you could have the new Transformers,
Right.
right?
Or he doesn't have to win, but he doesn't have to die
Right,
either.
exactly.
He
Yeah.
can get injured so bad in the fight that he has to pass on the leadership for the good of the race,
Yep.
you know, kind of thing. And he gives it to Ultra Magnus, and then it plays out that maybe Ultra Magnus isn't the right one, and it goes to Rodimus Prime,
Yeah.
and it goes like that. But they killed him off, and they knew that was a mistake because they tried bringing him back in the cartoons. But BX Gunner 81 says he could see a spin-off series after this plus another movie. Oh, without a doubt. And that
100%.
goes back to those books that we were reading. The first book, which was called Exodus, is basically this movie where Optim or Orion Pax and D16 are essentially friends. And it was a little different. They weren't minors in the book. Like there were two classes of species on Cybertron. There was like the working class and the military class, right? And the
Yeah.
Decepticons were basically the military class, and the working class were the Autobots. And they somehow become, friendly with each other, and Megatron quickly becomes like a Hitler type of character, and Orion Pax is more of a let's do this by the book, and kind of do justice the way justice is supposed to be done according to the book,
Yeah.
by the book of law kind of thing. And then it spirals out of control, and it's them having to leave Cybertron because Cybertron's going to die, right? Cybertron has no more energon, and they have to
Yeah.
get out of. That's why it's called Exodus. They have to leave. And then the next book's Exile deals with them finding Earth, and forming their colony on Earth, which is pretty cool. So some other things that we want to talk. So that's the whole movie, right? So, and then you have an after credit scene. Joe, you want to explain the after credit scene?
So the other critic scene, you're kind of in like that lava part of Cybertron that like we see in season 3 of the G1 series.
You're in
And
Mustafar.
right, and it's just Megatron, branding all of the Decepticons with the face of Megatronus, which is the
Yeah,
Decepticon logo we now know. And he gives his
right.
speech of, we are the Decepticons. We're going to take back this
Yeah,
planet. Nothing's going to stop us. And like
yeah,
he's just full blown Megatron.
yeah. And it was done really, really well.
Oh, so good.
So the character development, like we went through it all, and it was absolutely great. I loved seeing. It wasn't Sunstreaker. Sunstreaker was the yellow Lamborghini, right?
Yep.
Who was the red Lamborghini?
Sideswipe
So you saw Sideswipe, like they gave him his own like 5
moment.
seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh my god, that's him. That was really great. The animation style. Let's talk about that. I thoroughly enjoyed how they did it in this movie.
In the beginning of the episode, we talked about the lack of differentiation between Decepticons and Autobots. We talk about the bad guys in all the superhero movies, how they're just very dark and grayscale. This was bright as day, as colorful as you can get, just like the
Yeah.
G1 cartoon, whereas it's a bright, sunny background and
Hmm.
all of the colors.
Yeah.
Even the
All the
scenes where
colors.
they were like on the surface of Cybertron, where they were underground, like
Hmm.
the colors really just popped, and you could tell who was who. I could
Yeah.
tell who was Ratchet. I could tell who was Prowl. I could tell who was Ironhide and Jazz, and just by their heads,
Yeah.
like I could
Yeah.
differentiate that. Right?
Right.
You knew who was who.
And that was the one thing that really I hated that of the Michael Bay movies. Not knowing, it was just a mishmash of just metal and gears, and it just wasn't intriguing. It wasn't interesting. But this, like you said, even in the mine where it's
Yep.
dark, you saw the pink of Alita 1 as bright as day in a dark purple mine.
Yep.
You know, it was really, really well done. So the animation
You
style, I give really good score.
you know what character development I really liked
Was that
was Starscream, because I don't know if you
did you,
caught it after he gets choked out by
the voice
Megatron,
change,
right?
right?
Yeah, like when he's with Sentinel Prime, he's got the
Yeah,
raspy voice. I'm like, oh my god, they did it! They
yeah.
did it! They
He's
pulled
more
this
like
off.
this now. Yeah, he
Yep,
was he was just he was just straight up Steve Buscemi. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Hey, you can't be. I'm the boss." And then he was like, "Hey,
yep.
I'm not." Yeah. It was really cool because they kind of
So good.
broke his voice box or whatever. And I love the fact that B had a voice. Like that was another thing that I really hated in the Transformers movies, Michael Bay movies, was I hated the fact that Bumblebee couldn't speak. Like I can deal with it for a half an hour in the first movie until you fix it. But
Right.
you literally did it for you. Like you can't figure this out after 5 movies.
Yeah.
Like Ratchet can't fix his friggin' voice. Come on now. Like
And
this is silly.
he's got that upbeat personality to him that Bumblebee had in the G1 series.
Yeah.
Like he was the annoying Autobot that everybody was just like, "Come on, man! Like I don't want to deal with your shit today," And like
Yeah.
that's how Megatron was to him. Like, "Come on, man! Like we're stuck on this surface of this planet. I don't want to deal with your mouth."
Badassatron,
Yeah.
badassatron. I thought that was funny. Like that was funny, especially after he gets all his he's been calling himself as he's in the basement. He was calling himself Badassatron, and it's obviously funny because he's not a badass at that point, right? But he keeps calling himself Badassatron just to kind of raise his spirits. And then he gets the cog, the transformation cog, and he gets like real weapons, and he starts like really like killing people, like yeah, he's fighting and really doing well. And he gets so he's like Megatron. He gets so happy about it, and it really landed. Like it landed so well, and everyone thought that was really really funny. Let's see, we got 4 comments here. Let's go through these 4 comments. See, Super Gamer says if people don't really know the Matrix, it's really part of Primus's spark to keep the spark going until the world was restored. Yes, correct, correct. BX Gunner says, I like how this showed why Starscream hates Megatron, seeing how Starscream was the rebel band leader and then lost it to Megatron. Yeah, that's a really good point, Gunner. How, you know, he's been the leader since the end of the war, right? Since the end of the Quintesson War, he's been in charge of the High Guard. And then friggin' D16 just walks in, friggin' whips his ass and takes his army from him.
Yep.
So yeah, you can definitely see the animosity there. Super Gamer says, if you make an Autobot vehicle, what do you think they look like? If you make an Autobot Viacon, what do you think they look like?
Well, if the Decepticons were like jets, I'd imagine like some sort of generic car, kind of like a Bumblebee-esque, you know?
Yeah. Or you know, what's the I would love to see a pickup truck. Pick 'em up
Just
truck.
make it, yeah.
You know, I wouldn't mind seeing a Ford F-150 out there. You know, just a typical worker truck. That'd be pretty cool. The voice casting I thought was fantastic.
I loved it.
It was great.
I didn't think I was gonna like it.
Yeah.
But
Hemsworth was great. I don't know who the actor is for D16, but he was really good.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry. Very good job by him. Scarlett Johansson was good.
Yep.
The Key guy, I can't remember his name, Michael something Key. He was really good.
Keegan Key.
Michael Keegan Key. Ben Ham was very good. And Lawrence Fishburne. I think Lawrence Fishburne was the best one out of all of them.
Yep.
He was Alpha Trion. I think he was the sleeper voice there. He did an amazing job as Alpha Trion. You really believed he had the wisdom of an ancient, you know, Prime with that voice. You know, because he has one of those voices, kind of like, you know, James Earl Jones, but not to that level, but you know, like one of those. If I make one, I think Super Gamer says, if I make one, I think red body, blue visor, just recolor Decepticon vehicle. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Very, you know, Steve, cool. The one thing I was thinking about at the end of the movie that I would have paid any amount of money for this was that once Orion Pax became Prime and D16 became Megatron, that magically you had Peter Cullen's voice and Frank Welker's voice.
I thought that too.
And I'm like,
I thought that too.
I know why you can't do that, but
yeah,
if this was a one-off movie, I would have paid any money to see that happen.
Yeah, like when he came up from the depths of Cybertron, and he just comes up and he's like, "I am Optimus." He just comes up like this.
So we meet again.
How perfect would that have been? I didn't even time that one.
I think I would have just got up and started cheering in the theater.
Yeah, that would have been great. That would have been fantastic. Connection to canon. I thought they stood within the boundaries of the rules of the show. They set rules and they stuck to them. The Quintessons, like the fact that they used the Quintessons and the Quintessons had tentacles like octopus, I thought was great. I was really hoping that they would have rotating heads.
So the Quintessons have like their the Quintessons are the judges. What is the guard that we have in like courts? Like, you know, we have the judge and we have the police officer that stands next to them.
Yeah, the like the bull, like Bull from Night Court.
Yeah. Like the guys with the tentacles are the bull. Like, I don't think the Quintessons ever leave the ship because that's their minion to be like, go do our business for us.
I gotcha.
Even like the subtle changes to the Shucticons where you made them kind of like crabs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I didn't even care about that.
Did you see the Insecticons?
No.
They were in the High Guard. They're in the back of the High Guard.
I missed that. They're all there.
Yeah, and I think the Constructicons are in there too.
I missed that too.
Yeah, no, they're in there. They're definitely in there. Yeah, so I thought they did great sticking to the canon. They had the primes, they had the Matrix of Leadership,
Yeah,
they had Quintessons, they had Energon. Um, I thought it was really well done. So that
this
was
is a
good.
great prequel to G1.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's
Like you, if
very good.
you put this right before that, and then you started watching G1, you'd be like, awesome.
Do you think we can get AI to make this movie into G1 animation?
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's all animated anyway.
That'd be interesting, right? If you just made it G1 animation with all the little like, mistakes in it and stuff.
Yep,
We got a comment here. Super Gamer says, "What it be if Bumblebee has his Bumblebee movie face, but not the one we got? What
I would have
if
hated it.
Bumblebee?" Yeah, I would have hated it too. I like the one that they gave him in this movie,
Yep, he was
or I would
Bumblebee.
have. He was Bumblebee for sure.
They gave him that guard face that like we've seen in the movies,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, they gave him the battle helmet at one
Yeah, well,
point.
I was fine with
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Fan expectations. So, like I said, I had very low expectations going into this.
Me
But
too.
now I'm super pumped for whatever sequel they're gonna do because they have to
Oh,
do a sequel.
give me Transformers 2, give me Transformers 3. If you keep this format,
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
yeah.
Because now, like the rest of the Autobots have to learn their powers.
Mhm.
Prime is still learning his. He doesn't have his trailer.
Nope.
Like there's so much stuff.
And he has to, like you said, like Blaster has to learn how to be Blaster, and
Right.
they have to recruit Perceptor to be a scientist. And they're gonna need someone to heal the wounded. So Ratchet has to kind of fall into that role.
Yep.
Because like you said, all of these people aren't trained soldiers, and they never were, and that's why they lose all the time.
No,
Because
I
they're
think
not trained soldiers.
if you do a part two to this and you don't kill anybody off,
Yeah.
and you just take a small group of Autobots or a smaller group of Decepticons, and you flesh out a couple extra characters,
Mhm.
it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like you got Jazz has some speaking roles. Ironhide does. Wheeljack does. RC does. During the race, you get a whole list of Transformers on that scoreboard.
Oh,
You get
yeah, that's right.
Mirage, you get Motormaster, you get Jetfire, you get Blur,
Mhm.
right?
Some of my favorites.
Like they're all they like, they made mention to every character you encountered was a Transformer that exists in
Yeah,
lore.
right. Super Game says, "What if they took Transformers 1 and made AI to make it look like Transformers Prime?" I don't think it's that far off from Transformers Prime, to be
No,
honest.
no,
I
no.
like Transformers Prime. That was a great show. I really enjoyed Transformers Prime.
Yep.
Um, but I don't think the animation style's that much. I mean, it's definitely different, right? You can easily put a picture of Optimus from both shows and be able to pick out which one is which. But that would be pretty cool. I think I'd be more interested in seeing it in a G1 style because I'm old. Super Gamer might be a young kid. I'm old.
Right. What was the movie with Hugh Jackman and the robot that
Oh,
they fought?
it was a boxing movie, right?
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, like that's how I
Yeah.
thought the Autobots were gonna look throughout
Okay.
the movie. Which I like when I
Yes.
first saw the trailer, I was like, I don't want that. I don't want these
Yeah.
scrawny looking Transformers. But as they get their cogs and they evolve, they become a little more boxier, what we're accustomed to.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that
Yeah.
was the change where I was like, that won me over. Where I'm like, okay, not they all don't look like this.
Right.
Like Darkwing, when you see Darkwing is a big robot. The Sentry Guards are big robots. Sentinel
Yeah.
Prime is a big robot.
Yeah. And I like how they've made Sentinel Prime look. What was I thought of this. Remember those things you used to paint, those big robots from that other like show you
Oh,
used to
Gundams.
watch? Gundams. They made
Yep,
Sentinel Prime look like a Gundam, in my
yep.
opinion.
Sentinel Prime reminded me of Homelander,
Yeah, I could see that.
right? Like that. Like
Yeah.
he was like this I have this gaudy armor with these big wings and gold and blue, and I'm just this like larger than life character,
Yeah.
but evil as hell. Anything they get ahead.
Yeah. Because when he went full psychopath at the end and he started making himself real big and he had the wings,
Yep.
like it reminded me of one of those things that they used to paint and put together, the
Yep.
Gundam
Yep.
ones. I
The
thought that was
Gundams. Yep.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yep.
So this question here, why this movie could appeal to both long-term and newcomers? I think we're the proof in the pudding why this can appeal to long-time fans, because they did it right. They gave the audience what they wanted, and it wasn't fan service. It was a good story done with the material that should have been used. It's very simple. It's a
Yeah.
very simple plan. You
Well, I
want to
want to
make
ask you
people happy.
because you came with your family, right? You went with your wife,
Uh-huh.
who knows Transformers through you, but not as well,
Right. And
right?
my two
And your
kids.
right, who are
Alana knows
I don't
nothing.
right.
Alana knows nothing about it, and Christian basically stays away from anything I like.
And
He's
what
like,
was their take of this movie?
Christian said this is the best movie I've ever seen, and
Really?
he made me buy the popcorn bucket. I didn't initially buy the popcorn bucket,
You must have
which
been a
is right
proud
here.
dad.
I couldn't buy this quick enough for him. He's like, "Can we get the popcorn?" I'm like, "Yes, we can." So this is the popcorn bucket. It's very cool. It's got,
Very
you know,
cool.
Orion packs on one side. It has there it is, B127.
Yep.
It's got D16 and it's got Alita 1 and it lights up.
Oh, very cool.
It lights up and flashes and it's pretty cool. It's hard to clean because the water gets into this like base and it like I can see that getting moldy. So
Mm.
be careful when you wash that. But we
And
got the
what'd your
popcorn
daughter
and
think about it?
my daughter loved it. Every time they said Steve, she cracked up. She just thought that was so funny when they killed Steve. She's like, "Daddy, my favorite line was when he said, he killed Steve. He killed Steve." But yeah, they loved it, man. Like you said, it couldn't have made me any happier because I had to drag Christian to see this movie.
Yep.
Like Alana, if I say to Alana, listen, we're gonna go to the garbage dump, she'd be like, I want to go too. Take me to the garbage dump. Right? It doesn't matter where we go, she wants to go. But Christian, like to get him to go somewhere is a real, it's like pulling teeth. And
Yep.
he didn't want to go. And I was like, dude, we're all going. We're going as a family. I didn't have to. This was like the first time in 6 weeks I didn't have to work on a weekend.
Mm.
So I was like, this is the first time I have off because it's raining like hell here. I couldn't do the job that I needed to do. And I was like, we're all going. And he sat and he loved it, man. He's like, can we buy it on? He's like, can we watch it at home? I'm like, it's not on home yet. I was like, as soon as it comes out on digital, I will buy it for you. I
Right.
was like, I'm gonna get the Blu-ray. He's like, what's a Blu-ray? I was like, oh no, I failed you. I failed you as a dad.
But maybe you won him over now, Steve.
And maybe I did. I think the director and the creative team did a great job. They stuck to what I think they knew was going to work for this franchise. And I hopefully they learned what didn't work in the previous movies because Michael Bay was an executive producer on this. I don't know if he actually did anything or if he just has to contractually have his name on stuff.
Right.
Because he was listed in the executive producer role on this. It didn't feel like a Michael Bay movie to me.
Not at all.
Not at all. It didn't have it would have had inappropriate jokes in it that were unneeded. It would have had
Yeah.
more action scenes than it did like there was meaning to the scenes in this show. It wasn't just action all the time,
Mhm.
right? There was meaning and underlying things that meant something when it happened. So I think they did a very good job with that. Box office predictions and future films. I don't know how this movie is going to do in the box office. I really hope it does well. I don't know if you can look up how it's doing.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to feel very bad if this movie doesn't make its money back because it totally deserves a sequel. 100% deserves a sequel.
So it's grossed 72 million worldwide.
Do you have a budget for it by any chance?
Let's see.
Let's see. It says $71 million.
Yeah, that's what it's made so far.
75 million
Oh,
was the budget. 75 million was the budget. So you got to double that,
and it
right? They
opened
say,
with 24.6 million.
okay. So they say the rule of thumb is that you have to double the budget because that's what you use for advertising. So if you say 150 million, it has to make 150 million to break even.
So it's been out what, a week now?
It's been out a week, I think. Yeah.
That's not so it's
I hope,
doubled. It's doubled week to week.
yeah, I hope that the good reviews help it along. I
Yeah.
hope this little podcast that gets out there to a few hundred people will make those few hundred people go see it. I want to go see it again.
But it's like
I
you
re-
said, the trailers didn't do it justice,
yeah, the trailers were
right? Like
terrible. Whoever cut those trailers needs to be fired.
I don't Rotten Tomato or any review like site that I see has this at like anywhere from 80 to 90% ratings.
Yeah.
Now, usually I take those with a grain of salt because depending on who's reviewing it or what franchise it is, people
Mhm.
like to skew those numbers. But you know, like you said, a podcast told you it was good. You told me it was good. I told
Yeah.
our friend Seb, go take your son, who's a huge Transformers fan. Like,
Yeah.
otherwise, we all would have stayed away from it.
That's right.
I think this movie, if it doesn't do well in theaters, will do well in
Hmm.
home streaming, and like you said, digital copies and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But I hope it makes its money so that they'll make a sequel.
Yeah,
Because I want to see a sequel. And then you got to hope that the sequel's done right. Because how many times
yeah.
do they take a franchise that had a good first movie and then ruin it in the second movie with stupid things?
I think they've
But
been very frugal with what they're doing with this movie. The merchandise isn't a whole lot. Like you go to Target, there's not a lot of Transformers One stuff.
yeah,
So like,
merchandising. Transformers the lunchbox.
right.
Transformers the flamethrower.
But this is a movie that came out now in the end of September. If it
Yeah.
gets enough traction, like Christmas is around the corner,
Hmm.
Halloween's a few weeks away. Who
Yeah.
wants to be Prime and Bumblebee and Megatron for Halloween? Who wants
Yeah.
the toys? Like there's no video game with it.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I
Yeah.
hope it does well. I want more of this. This felt like I said it to you earlier. This felt like the Transformers movie that I've been waiting for.
So rating out of 5.
Honestly,
Honestly,
I'm gonna give it a 5.
5 right here, baby.
Yep.
I give it a 5.
I,
100%. I
I
give this movie a 5.
so the only thing I didn't like, Steve, was when they came out of the tunnels after meeting Alpha Trion and getting the cogs and all that stuff. They're
Uh-huh.
learning how to transform, and then they start doing battle with Sentinel Prime's goons. And there's one scene where Prime grabs one of like the random soldiers, and he transforms into the truck
Yeah.
to
And
crush
crushes them.
the right. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
he didn't know how to transform, and now he knows how to use this to like
Well, he
defeat
just
a
got it. No, I think that was
right.
an accident. It was an
Oh,
accident.
okay. Well, that I believe.
Yeah. Hey, I
I
don't think
loved
he
how
did. I don't think he did that on purpose.
yeah. That was the only thing I was like, he didn't know what he was doing before. Even when Megatron uses the cannon, and he's like, "Dude, are you okay?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Look at this. I got a cannon." No, it's great. I'm
But
glad I
cool,
went to see
man.
it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it for us, everybody. I want to thank everybody in the chat. So I hope that BX Gunner 81 and Super Gamer subscribe and like the show and follow us. We talk
I'll do it
about
for
it. We don't only talk about Transformers,
yeah.
unfortunately. We talk a lot about other shows and TV shows and movies and things. We have 2 basic segments on this channel, which is the Popcorn Bucket, which does a movie, and then we have our podcast called the Toxic Fandom Podcast. They one show a week for each of these shows, and we hope that you guys continue to come chat with us and hang out with us and talk to us about entertainment and pop culture. So thanks for that. Thanks to Rito and Billy and everyone else who showed up as well. You guys always make it a lot of fun. We love hearing your comments and we love talking to you guys. And until all are one, I'm Mav,
I'm Soundwave.
and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.